Welcome to A Taste of AZ podcast, where we interview everyone from James Beard award-winning chefs to local mixologists, winemakers, breweries, and so much more. We've got an awesome episode lined up for you today. But before we get into that, head to atasteofaz.com so you can subscribe to our quarterly magazine and email newsletter to find all of the best places to eat and drink around town. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Now let's get into the episode.
All right, well, we've already got some stories rolling. I mean, we haven't even started yet, Arnott, and we're here, we're rolling. We had some great stories. We've gone all over the place, and I just met you 10 minutes ago, so great to meet you.
There's a lot of places to go.
Yeah. Yeah. You warned me, too, that I might have to cut you off, but I don't plan on it. I mean, we got an hour and 27 minutes of memory card here, but I have more memory cards in my bag. So
You're scaring me.
Thanks for having us here, man. This is an incredible location that you have. I mean, everything that you guys are doing, I'm just super impressed by, and I'm really glad that we were able to connect and get you on the podcast. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to introduce yourself and explain who you are here at Duncan Family Farms?
So I'm Arnott Duncan, and I guess I'm the founder. And in my role today, I'm a chief agronomist.
Okay.
I'm kind of stepping back a little bit. So there's an executive team that's in place that will take this thing forward. And strangely, I think it's a place, Duncan Family Farms in general. First, I think people enjoy farming organically. The people that are here like being here.
Okay.
And then the other part of it that's really cool is they like being here with the other people that are here. And I enjoy the culture of the farm and the respect that we have for each other. And it's just a cool place to work.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it's a place that should keep going. So just because I leave doesn't mean this place needs to stop.
Yeah.
So it's going to go on.
I dig it.
I hope.
I dig it. Yeah. Well, so we got to back up a little bit. I mean, not a little bit. Let's go all the way back. Where are you from?
I was born in Phoenix. I was born at St. Joseph's Hospital. And
okay.
Now I live like less than a mile from it. But
yeah.
So I grew up, my biological father passed when I was about 4.5. My mom remarried to a farmer.
Okay.
And I just remember as a little kid loving going out to the farm. That was my thing. I just enjoyed that. So when I got out of high school, went to the U of A, studied agriculture, got my degree in agronomy and plant genetics, and just was going to turn the farming world upside down.
Yeah.
And haven't done that.
Okay.
But have had an incredible amount of fun, challenges. It's been everything that I think you would want in what you want to do in life.
Yeah.
It's just because it's never going to be a cakewalk, or for those that it is, congratulations if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
The challenges formed me as much as anything else did too.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, that's kind of I feel like if you're not having those challenges, like, are you pushing yourself enough? Right. I have daughters, 11 and 13 now that are just, my daughter's like, she's like, I can't, I'm trying to draw this and I can't. I'm like, that's it. Like, you're doing great. Like the mistakes that you're making or your perceived mistakes, like those are all like you're pushing yourself. You're going beyond what your current capabilities are to raise those capabilities.
Oh, we've had absolutely daunting challenges here where you're looking at something and just, well, shoot, I want to say as recently as a year ago, I was looking at my wife, Kathleen, and just going, right about now, whoever it is that's out there can stop kicking me in the groin, because I feel like we've had enough challenges for this period of time.
Yeah.
If it's multiple hailstorms, frost, grasshopper, whatever those things are.
Yeah.
Can we stop that right about now? Because I feel like I've gotten a pretty good learning curve going here.
Yeah.
Let's go a different direction.
Yeah.
So.
And someone's saying no, you can handle a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. No, let's see what you're really made of.
Yeah. Yeah. And people are like, well, you got to be grateful for this. I in the moment, I'm not, right. When you
that's for sure.
Yeah. In the moment, you're like, I don't want to be grateful. I just want to sit down for a little bit and relax. But let's go back though, because we kind of jumped from 4 on the farm to out of college, changing the world, right? But what was it about? Like, I mean, where was it here in the valley? Like that you were
South Phoenix.
South Phoenix.
I actually
Okay,
grew
yeah.
up farming in a lot of little fields here and there.
Okay.
You know, my dad was piecing things together too. And, you know, when he started his own farm, he was borrowing tractors here and there, you know, just cobbling together some leases so that he could farm and doing, you know, kind of the classic. And I started with sort of doing the classic central Arizona blend of cotton, forages, and small grains.
Okay.
And that was the thing.
What are forages?
Forages would be alfalfa, things
Okay.
to, you know, feed animals, if you will.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's what I was growing, was just a little bit of alfalfa, some small grains. And those were all kind of in a rotation for the cotton, because cotton was king.
Okay. Yeah. Cotton was huge here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like when I first moved here in 07 from Ohio, I worked at the Wigwam, and they give you the whole education of, you know, Goodyear and, you know, with the cotton and the rubber and the tires and all that stuff. And because the climate is very much like Egypt or something, right? Like Egyptian cotton.
That's how it started here.
Yeah.
So you know that history.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So I might pull out some surprises on you here.
You already are.
Nice.
Keep them coming.
Nice.
Remember, I got to learn and go.
Yeah. Well, we're going to learn from each other. I already can feel that. But I would say something really interesting and unique about one of the reasons I moved to Phoenix and Arizona just in general was sunshine, right? Growing up in Ohio, sunshine was it's not exactly plentiful, right? In the Midwest, you know, it is, you know, you get it sometimes, but the sunshine and being able to be outside, and, you know, I worked for years in a desk job. And one of the reasons I started podcasting is like, I live in this beautiful state. And, you know, when I was doing a music podcast, I was in my walk-in closet. I didn't even have ventilation. I didn't have windows. You know, I'm like, I'm in this beautiful state and I'm inside, you know? So we started kind of exploring the food community and we're able to travel around. But being outside all the time with the farming, was that a huge piece of it?
It's great.
Yeah.
I can't say enough the value, what it has done for me. I just remember visiting with my my college counselor, and you know, he's asking me, all right, so what do you want to do? So, well, I want to be outside.
Yeah.
I mean, I just know that's what I want to do.
Like that was the main priority. Like that was
top. By far.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I want to work outside. I'm just not an indoor guy. I'm not an office guy. Taking nothing away from those people that thoroughly enjoy that aspect of working and enjoying the company of other people in that environment. That just wasn't me.
Sure.
But it never had been me because I grew up on the farm, if you will. So yeah, it was just cool. I enjoyed it.
What did he say then, your counselor, when you're like, I want to work outside? He's like, well,
so what are we going to do?
Well, what did you have in mind what were you going to do to turn the farming world upside down? Like what was the mindset? You know
what's interesting, when you first start into farming, you're not thinking about turning the farming world upside down. In fact, I've never had that thought, if you will. You jokingly say that about anything that you're going to do, but it's about surviving.
Yeah.
You know, when you first get going, it takes a lot of money to get into farming, and you're not making much. So you're just cobbling together, borrowing here and there, just like my dad did.
Yeah.
And probably almost every farmer that jumps out on their own, maybe a bit prematurely. You know, my dad's great, but he and I were best off when we weren't farming together.
Oh, okay.
And so my wife, Kathleen, and I had this 5-year plan, you know, of here's how we're going to lay it out. We're going to do all these things. And then in 5 years, we'll be doing our own thing. And I think we broke the 5-year plan in the first year.
Okay. Yeah.
And I go home and I just said, well, we're on our own now.
Yeah.
And she said, well, that shortens the 5-year plan, doesn't it? What a trooper, though. My goodness. She dove in and she had a full-time job. And so with her benefits and, you know, we were able to borrow. I had already established a little bit of a background and track record with the ag lending world. And so we were able to get a loan and lean into it.
Okay. To start Duncan Family Farms?
At that time it was called AKD Farms.
Okay.
And we were doing mostly cotton, but we were doing some veggies.
When was this? Like at what year was this approximately?
Probably about 85.
Okay.
84, 85.
Yeah.
So, it was a hard turn.
Yeah.
And, so the interesting thing is, if anybody's looking to get into farming, it's a gamble. And so we would get the loan papers every year. And from year one on, I'd come in, we'd set the loan docs down, and I'd look at her and just say, well, here we are again. You want to gamble everything we own one more time? And she'd say, it still is, isn't it? I mean, even 20 years into it, she'd say, it still is, isn't it? I said, it is. Yeah. No, everything we own.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's not like just a percentage anymore, because you've gotten bigger and bigger. No, it's everything you own.
Wow.
That's how much you're laying out there.
Yeah. Dang. That takes some courage and some,
I'm not a gambler.
Yeah. I was going to say.
I'm really not. Pretty conservative guy.
Yeah.
As far as, monetarily speaking. So, it's odd.
Yeah. Well, I would say that it's not necessarily gambling if you're very confident in what it is that you're doing, right? You're betting on yourself.
Unrealistic expectations and in myself and our abilities here. But you know what you know, and you feel confident in moving forward. I mean, there's certainly things that the world can throw at you.
Yeah.
Just weather alone can do it all.
Yeah. Well, and that's
for you or against you.
And that's the thing that, I mean, you have zero control over that, right? I mean, you've got control over certain things you can do to mitigate the weather.
Do.
Yeah.
We do. And we've invested in those things. When you're first starting out, you don't have the money to do that.
Yeah.
To get flowable row covers that can warm the soil and the plants underneath the row covers by about 4 degrees. Depending on the thickness. Sorry, I'm nerding out.
No, this is great. Keep it going.
You can get some thinner stuff that you can lay out that will allow, smaller raindrops through, but not hail.
Okay.
So there's different things that you can do to mitigate, as you alluded to. But at the end of the day, there's not enough money to have it for every single acre yet for us.
Okay.
I mean, we're investing in more and more each season, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure it's not getting cheaper.
No,
nothing is.
No,
right?
nothing seems to be getting cheaper.
No, right? Like you would think that there'd be some things that are dropping in price. Like, oh well, gas is more expensive, but hey, chicken is less expensive. But that's not the.
Although I will say the price that we receive per pound of what we're producing, and we produce a lot of the little baby salad components.
Okay.
You see labeled baby spinach, baby arugula, spring mix. Nationwide, we're not a huge farm, but we're 100% organic. So in the organic baby salad mix, if you anywhere in the country, you get into, an organic salad that's not locally grown, there's a percentage chance, a decent percentage chance it's going to have some of our product in there.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, so what made you decide to launch this? What were you doing before? Like what were you before you went out on your own?
Boy, it's interesting. So, we were growing mostly cotton and then some veggies. And then as I was putting budgets together, it just was almost impossible to put a budget together that realistically allowed you to make money growing cotton without the government involved. Okay. And so I just didn't ever want to, and still don't ever want to farm the government, because that just seems like not a good place to be.
Meaning like farm. What do you mean by that? Like basically you get a contract to grow for them.
No, there's just where you're dependent on government price support programs, whatever those programs may look like. Yeah. I just never wanted to have to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Still don't.
Yeah. Just want to do it the way that you want to.
Yep.
To do it. Yeah.
I'm kind of on record whenever those guys show up in town and they have listening sessions. I'm the one guy that walks up and says, "I'd just as soon you guys get out of agriculture, stay out and let us do our own thing."
Yeah. Yeah.
Not well received by most everybody in the room.
Sure, yeah.
But I still feel that, and actually it's interesting when they'll ask you, whoever it is that's there listening, representing their congressman, they'll come up and ask you, or maybe they'll ask you right as you're, at the microphone, why not? And then you start laying it out and they're kind of looking at each other like, actually, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But, I guess I kind of get it. USDA's job is to make sure that we have plenty of food in the United States.
Yeah.
So they're going to do what they feel they need to do to make sure that there are programs that foster that, shall we say.
Sure. Yeah. But then we've got outliers like yourself that keep the independence and the, keep the heart alive, right? I mean,
this would be a deep dive.
Yeah.
So we probably don't want to go there because it's kind of a boring deep dive too.
Yeah.
Let me just say that farmers are the ultimate independents, where you literally are, you gamble everything you own every year. So, I mean, that's an independent move.
Sure.
When you're believing in yourself that much, I got to hand it to farmers, ranchers, everybody that's in that business. It's a labor of love.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of the best way to put it.
Yeah.
If you don't love what you're doing, you're going to have to get out because it's not fun.
Yeah.
Unless you really love what you're doing.
Sure.
It's not fun getting beat about. It's not fun when you have to look around, just say, God, whoever it is, can you please stop kicking me in the groin right about now? That's not fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, except for the parts that are. And for me, walking fields, I carry a shovel with me all the time. I do shoveling every day. My wife's funny. She looks at me and she says, I don't understand how you can hike up that hill faster than me. She's like, I'm out here running and doing stuff every day. And she says, you do nothing. and I look at her and just say, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I actually do things during the day.
Yeah.
And I'm walking fields. I always carry my shovel. I get to exercise.
Yeah.
As much or as little as I want. And I really enjoy being out there and talking with all of the growers that we have and the people that are actually, driving tractors on the farm. They don't let me drive tractors anymore.
No, they gave the boot.
They're just like, hey, we need that tractor. Could you please get off? or you'll hear it on, you'll get a call. They're like, do you by any chance have that, X number tractor?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I was supposed to talk to you guys before I grabbed anything. Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So it's kind of comical for me, probably frustrating for them. So now I don't.
Yeah.
But I get to walk fields, and there's always weeds. There's always shoveling to be done, and just being in the fields and looking at the product, you get to see what's working and not working on a daily basis, and you learn all the time.
Sure.
And that's kind of cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. I like things that you're like with this. I mean, I came into, when I started doing the craft beer podcast, I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any knowledge of it. I just knew brewery tap rooms are really cool. The beer tastes really good. And there's just some cool branding behind it. That was all I knew though. So for me, everything is a brand new, I'm learning stuff all the time. And now that we're in food, and I love that. I'm just a lifelong learner. I just want to learn things. What my wife is the opposite. She'll ask a question. I'm like, oh, look it up. She's like, I don't want to. Can you just look it up and then learn it and then tell me? I'm like, all right, I will. And I like that.
Oh, you have the same relationship with your wife that I have with mine.
You're the learner. Are you the learner in the relationship?
No, Kathleen will frequently just go, oh, I'll just look it up.
Yeah.
And then she'll just look at me and say, did you know this? And it's like, that's a little curve. All right. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you walk the fields, and how big is your team now? Like because you've got this whole office here, you got administrative, you've got people on the farm. Do you
I would say at any given time, there's about 300, 350 people.
Okay. That's a good amount.
Between the Arizona farm, the Oregon farm, and the New York farm.
Oh, so you got 3 farms. Okay. Gotcha.
Oregon happened first.
Okay.
Because we were asked by, well, the first time somebody says to you when you're asking them, okay, well, we've been increasing with you every year. How many acres of this product, fill in the blank, would you like? And the first time someone said, we're gonna expand a little bit more with some of the guys who are going year round with us, and it's ding, okay.
Meaning you're losing this person because you're not providing.
And then you get other people who will call you and just say, can you do 52 weeks? It's like, sure. Because that's the answer you have to use.
Yeah.
It's always yes. And then you figure it out. So Central California was heating up and not having as much water. So we went to Oregon as a little bit of a play against global warming. And so, it's worked out well for us. We like being where no one else is.
Okay.
Sure. So if the leafy greens world is basically Yuma during the winter, Salinas during the summer, we don't want to be there.
Okay.
Because you have tens of thousands of acres that are contiguous. And so you get diseases and insects that affect those areas. And being in someplace else can really be a benefit.
Yeah.
Not to say that we always have product. We just zig when they zag.
Yeah.
And so you always want to have some of your product with us. And it's something that we take very seriously. It's when people depend on you for their product, you have to have it.
Yeah.
And so it's also really cool though, when they trust you with that. And we're not right next door to all the processing plants. So you got to pay us just a little bit more for that extra trucking. So, but we zig when they zag.
Yeah.
And so it works.
I dig that. So Oregon was before Arizona? Or you
No,
had
Arizona,
then
then Oregon.
Gotcha.
And then we ship all over the country and into Canada. And at one point in time, we were flying product to the UK.
Oh, wow.
Which was fascinating to me. And it showed up great.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. So anyway, we were just an insurance policy for a group over there, but too expensive for them.
Okay.
To continue that. So we did it for about 3 or 4 years until they were able to come up with plan B. But that said, we have buyers in the East who were saying, we need you out here. We need you guys out here. We know that you've started something someplace else. So you have the ability to go and start someplace else and create what you're able to do in multiple locations. Come out here.
Yeah.
So we're in upstate New York now.
Gotcha. When did that happen?
This is our second iteration of that. And so we've been out there a few years.
Okay.
And talk about a learning curve,
Yeah.
We're learning how to adjust to completely different weather situations.
Yeah.
Where it rains 3 inches in 3 days.
Yeah.
Tough to plant, tough to harvest, all things.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? And so it's been fascinating. And so having the different circumstances of Southwest, Northwest, and Northeast allows you to gamble, if you will, on a much larger basis, but also learn much more quickly as well. Everything that you learn in each location can be translated and transferred to the other growing areas. Not always,
sure,
but a lot of the times.
Yeah. And things that you probably you've never encountered in Arizona or you never even thought of because you've never had to deal with it. Go to New York and you're like, oh, this is just how it is here.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of cool too when you show up in New York or Oregon and there's an issue there that the locals haven't figured out. And it's like, oh yeah, we've seen that. Here's what we're doing. And then all of a sudden, people are looking at that going, how'd you figure that out?
Yeah.
Well, we've been doing that in Arizona for a long time.
Yeah. Try living in the
Unfortunately.
Valley of the Sun. Exactly. Yeah. Wish we hadn't, but that's the nature
it's
of it.
It's one of those things. So we learned the hard way.
Yeah.
It can work both ways for you.
So what made you guys decide to do the products that you do now? Like, what made you decide to do specifically, like, what do you do now? Like, because I'm confident that I buy most of my like herbs and stuff. Do you do herbs? Yeah. Because my wife was like, I was telling her who I was doing the podcast with. I'm like, you've seen their stuff. She's like, really? And I showed her, like, we had a packet. I think it was like sage or rosemary or something. I'm like, these guys. She's like, oh, she's like, we use them all the time. And she eats your microgreens and, so very familiar. So what made you decide to go down that path?
As I was talking about, we're shipping and trucking to meet the needs of our buyers. But you also start to take a look around at why aren't we taking more advantage of our regional production and starting to grow regionally for local buyers?
Yeah.
And so, there's some things that these buyers in this area, in the Phoenix Met, they already have relationships with certain people for producing, leafy greens or whatever it is that we are already doing in abundance.
Yeah.
But we were doing a small herb deal and just looking to diversify, to become more resilient as every farmer needs to be.
Sure.
And so looking at herbs was one way, and we found that we're actually pretty good at it. We had some infield high hoops that we had used for strawberries. And so we took those infield high hoops and were able to control the environment just enough to grow some really nice herbs year round.
Yeah.
And so started doing that, and it's really funny. So it's cool to get the feedback. And so my son Kel has a buddy who's a chef, and he walked into one of his places that he shops. I don't know if it's appropriate to name.
Sure.
Anyway, yeah. But anyway, he went into a local retailer, and it's one where there's some cool. Every one of them, I think there's herbs right on the right as you walk in the main door, the main entrance, and then there's low slung coolers. And he's walking along, and he says to my son, "Oh, hey, saw your family stuff in such and such a store," and he's going, "Man, that's fantastic. How do I get that?" Because he had walked in, and even though he was about 10 feet from the area where it's being marketed, he said, "I could smell them." You don't smell herbs when you go into a place. And he said, "I could smell these. They hit me like slap in the face."
Yeah.
And so he said, "I was drawn to it. I go over and all these things are totally fresh." And he's going, I want these for my restaurants."
Yeah.
And Kel said, "Yeah, they're not doing that yet."
You can buy that whole bin over there.
Food service doesn't really buy a lot of organic.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
But there are individuals. And so anyway, we have a will call at our distribution center. And so we're trying, we just don't do deliveries yet.
Okay. Yeah.
It was something that we did for a while. My brother and I did. And then, I got busy and he took that end of it and just recently retired, but that was his thing. He was delivering locally grown stuff to local chefs.
Yeah.
And made a living doing it.
Nice.
So, that was part of the reason why we didn't do it, is we didn't want to, jump in and compete against my brothers.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, should we, maybe,
yeah.
It's a conversation that I think is kind of happening around here. So we'll see.
Yeah. People buying organic,
but it's just locally grown fresh.
Yeah.
And maybe even trying to, Kel and I have talked about a project that he's doing in downtown, where the first story of this high rise will have a boutique downtown market.
Okay. Nice.
And one of the things that he's really excited about is having, not just our product, but having, local small growers be able to sell their product in a downtown market and come up with seasonally fresh different items in different seasons. So you really do get that locally grown feel and flavor and freshness. And how exciting will that be to, and have, I'm not sure if he's still thinking about having a kitchen. I know one of the aspects of it is having a restaurant there as well, but imagine getting some fresh meals as well with some of the items that are locally grown.
A real quick reminder, head over to atasteofaz.com and subscribe to our email newsletter. Also, subscribe to A Taste of AZ magazine and get it shipped right to your door. Now let's get back into today's episode.
All right, so I want to keep that going though, because I like that. So well, first of all, your son was featured in our new issue of our magazine. Didn't even like that was a nice surprise.
Yeah,
because you were looking at the.
It was for me too.
Yeah. So table of contents, you were looking like, what is this? We had a feature on the Churchill.
Yeah,
and that's your son's place.
Yeah.
The place is awesome.
It's great.
Yeah,
I know I'm a biased opinion, but I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah. What the farm guy, the rural guy, going and hanging out at hipster downtown Phoenix.
Hipster and Arnott Duncan really shouldn't be in the same sentence or anything referring to me.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah. So I think
you're a trendsetter. I think though.
Probably not. In farming, maybe.
Yeah. I like that.
But so anyway, back to why we just felt that in each one of our regional sites, could we start to create programs there where we're delivering locally instead of shipping at distance.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're attempting to do. And it's interesting. It's not one of those things where you can just start growing things.
Sure.
Because they don't hold. So if you can't just grow this stuff and then go out and try and find a buyer. You have to have a relationship with those buyers already.
Yeah.
And then start talking about what they want to do, how they want to get better. Yeah. And so if they're honest with you, they can tell you what their challenges are. And then if it happens to be something that matches up with what you do well and you can do it for them in an extremely regular manner where you got, what they need on a daily basis, then you can start talking about how that relationship matures.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's the financial viability of it, right? Like you can grow all these things, and the chef's like, I'm not buying that. Like, and organic is something that I think it was something that I just kind of recognized recently, right? Like, because you go to a higher end restaurant, you go to an expensive restaurant, and make great meals, but I think to myself, I'm like, wonder if this is organic. I wonder if this is, there's sometimes you get the whatever the ranch is, the chicken, the wash chick, what is it? 2 wash or whatever.
Right.
Well, I don't remember. I was looking to you for the answer. Like, dude, you're the one that brought it up.
Kind of a veggie guy, but yeah.
But it'll state that, right, sometimes on it. But otherwise, like and I started thinking about it, I'm like, I bet you a lot of them don't. I mean, the cost already for a restaurant it's already really high. Right. So when you add in the organic aspect of it, it's a unique,
it's a unique restaurant. I mean, chains and things like that are definitely not going to be organic usually. Yeah. It's unique if they are, but for the most part, food service is conventional.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you talk about your buyers, you're talking about mostly like grocery stores and like who are the
our
main
buyers are processors mostly.
Okay.
And then so that's where we deviate then when we want to start selling locally, is because you are talking about retailers and other unique opportunities.
Yeah.
Universities sometimes, things like people in places like that who have the opportunity and will take advantage of it to choose between conventional and organic.
Gotcha. Okay. And so when you say a processor, like what does that mean? Like they're the ones they're kind of the middle between you and the grocery stores,
right? Like
the Sprouts and things like that.
So they're taking our product, washing it and blending it. Some of it they're chopping it and blending it. So
okay,
we do not presently do that. I don't know that we'll ever do that, but that takes a different focus.
Sure.
Not to say that we won't. I don't rule it out.
Yeah.
We're just not looking at doing it now.
It's interesting because I picture it, my simple mind with it. I'm like, oh, you pick it off and then you put it into the little sealed branded container, and you close that. But there's so much more involved with it, right?
I think there are some really cool opportunities for, locally grown, small processing, delivering to a local region.
Yeah.
Not just a city, but relatively speaking, 150 miles or something like that. Try to get into something that'll support the number of pounds that you're putting out on a weekly basis.
Yeah, gotcha. And what where do people find your products at this point?
Everywhere.
No,
I'm not kidding. Everywhere
Yeah.
in the United States, you walk into any place that's selling organic baby salad components in whatever configuration it may be, and if it's organic, there's a percentage chance that some of that product is ours.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So across the whole U.S., herbs.
Yeah, like every now and then
greens.
I'll call one of our buyers. If I go into a local store, I'm visiting family or something, I walk into someplace and I see their label, and we'll buy their label and call them up and let them know how it was, and so it's kind of funny. Every single time I've done it, I don't do it all the time, but it's the half dozen times that I've done it, they'll say, well, I'm glad you really liked it and thought it was fresh and flavorful because most of that product was yours.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, interesting.
You don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you sell to them, but you don't know at any given time, how they're blending, how they're using your product. So
Okay.
to have someone say, that to me was pretty cool.
That is cool.
And they're like, and by the way, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. So, all right. So this is all learning for me. I'm like, you're educating me. I'm learning so much, but so not everything that you grow ends up in a package with the Duncan Family Farms label on it.
No,
Okay.
some of it's fresh. Some of it goes into
Gotcha.
our own little clamshells, and we're selling them locally, as you alluded to. The herbs, for the locally grown fresh herbs, and the microgreens.
Okay. But then, now it makes it be so like a different brand in Ohio might be under Buckeye State salads, right? And it's your product though, and they or could be
if it's a good question. The processors that we're selling to, they keep their same label all around. So,
okay.
Yeah, if you see, yes. So anywhere, basically, most of the retailers in the country are going to have product from the processors that we're selling to.
Gotcha.
They're all the big boys.
Yeah. Okay. Man,
and girls.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I mean, it's to me, the farming side of things is just so intriguing. So I grew up in Ohio, like kind of rural Ohio. My brother-in-law was a farmer, still is a farmer. I mean, those are like you, farmer for life. Like he's like, I think 3rd generation dairy farmer. His dad just retired at like 80, but he's still out, he can't not work. Like I remember he would say on Sundays, he would get headaches because they would go to church and it was the day of rest. And he's like, I don't want to. Like, I don't want to.
I so feel that.
Do you? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because it's who you are. Like it's in such a great way, right? Like that's, I don't know. I was reading something recently and they were talking about like hobby farmers, hobby farmers and stuff like that. And it's a book about, I can't even remember what it's called offhand, but basically it's a book about not following your passion, right? Instead, like it has a really good point. It's like, what is your career capital? Like what are the skills you've built up through your life? And they tell the story about this guy who decided he was going to quit this whole corporate thing. He was making lots of money. He was going to have his own farm in New York, and 2 years he was like bankrupt, because he followed his path. I want to be a farmer. And then it's like, there's so much more to it. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but farmers are there. You guys are a different breed, right? Like it's in your soul. It's who you are. You know?
That individual, first off, I applaud that.
For taking that risk
to gather it all up and
Sure.
throw what you've got into the bag and take it to the bank and tell them about your dream. And if they believe in you, they'll give you the other part that you need. And, you got to be a little lucky. I'm just going to say that if there's anybody out there that's looking to get into farming, start small and grow. That's tough too, because you're limited by the size of your location as far as who your markets are.
Okay.
And so it's just an interesting thing. We got lucky. I got lucky.
Yeah.
My first year, you always have home runs. It seems like you have home runs and strikeouts. There's not a lot of singles that you hit.
Okay. It's home run derby pretty much.
Kind of.
You hit the home run
and
you don't.
So, you hit a home run in broccoli, but you give it away in cantaloupes. The next year potatoes hit for you, and something else dropped. I mean, you're balancing, the home runs and the strikeouts.
Yeah.
But there's very few singles.
Yeah.
So I got lucky. I had more home runs than strikeouts, and it gave us some wind in our sails that, honest to goodness, I thought I had a really good budget laid out. I had lists of equipment that I'd have to buy within certain periods of time if I was going to keep this thing going. I mean, I thought I had a pretty accurate plan, the 5-year plan. And once we got in and started doing it, I realized, I undershot that. That cash flow aspect of it. There were parts of it that I didn't quite figure in enough of the cash flow.
Okay.
So the amount of cash was accurate.
Yeah.
The cash flow, when that was going out compared to what was coming in, that was inaccurate.
Okay.
So I got lucky.
Yeah.
That we had a couple of home runs early on, and that gave us enough of the cash flow to bridge that what would have been. I mean, even singles, doubles, whatever, I wouldn't have had enough cash flow.
Gotcha.
And would I have been able to go back to the bank and say, hey, things are going well.
Yeah.
But here's what I didn't figure. Can you help me out?
Yeah.
Would they have jumped on and said, yeah, interest rate's going to be a little higher because, here's where we're at with you. Whatever the case may have been, I didn't have to go there.
Yeah.
We had it.
Yeah.
And it was cool. Had to pay a lot of tax.
Okay. Yeah.
But,
sure.
but we made ends meet.
Yeah. And that's an interesting aspect of it too. When we started this business, I have a really great business partner. He's very smart and knowledgeable in areas that I'm not, and vice versa. But he'd always talk about like cash flow. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. It's just money, right?
Yeah.
But now as we're kind of experiencing, it's like, oh, wow. Okay. So we have, we got this much for this thing, for advertising in this, but we need to get this to the printer on the 15th. And we still have $10,000 worth of payments that need to be made, right? It's not just that bottom line. Oh, we sold this much and this is what this costs. We're good. It's like, wow, no, how's that cash flowing? So, but you're right though. Like luck definitely plays a part in it. I'm my approach or my mindset on luck is, what do they say? When preparation meets opportunity type of thing. Right. And then sometimes there's just dumb luck. Sometimes it's like, why, not stepping off of that curb when the bus is flying by.
The luck is we had, good markets, good weather, good markets. We did a great job of growing it too.
Yeah.
So you create your own opportunity in that regard. I like what I do. I mean, I love what I do.
Yeah.
And so I'm out there a lot. And when you're out there a lot and you start to see good things and bad things, you can make adjustments as you're going.
Sure.
And if you're willing to be out there a lot, my sons, not last summer, the summer before last, held an intervention.
For you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because I was out there a lot.
Okay.
And their point was, you're 65 now. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And I said, what are you guys talking about? And they said, you're still out there all the time. We watched you work 20 hours a day and kill yourself.
Yeah.
And sorry,
Yeah.
it was wonderful. It was an absolute incredible moment with my sons. But they were right. You know, what are you doing?
Yeah.
When are you going to back away a little bit and start spending a lot more time with us? And they're like, don't get us wrong. You were there at our games whenever possible. I mean, you were doing it, but then instead of going home, you'd go out and change the water at night or whatever. And then, you know, we'd see, but I always told them I'd see you twice a day.
Yeah.
I'd see you in the morning. I'd see you in the evening, you know, and they're like, yeah, but we knew.
Yeah.
We knew what you were doing. So anyway, I got it. So I've started to slow down and things like that. But it's if you're willing, you know, to do what you really need to do to be out there and make the minor adjustments and teach the people that are working with you and make sure that they do it your way. Because everybody has their own way, but when you blend everybody's different ways, sometimes they don't mesh well. So it's not like your way is the only right way.
Sure.
But your way has to be the way that everybody buys into so that it works, you know, progressively, shall we say.
Yeah.
And so, because I have some incredible guys that I work with, and there's a guy here that's managing our Goodyear farm, and we started working together in the late 80s, and he started as a 16-year-old kid on the farm, and he's managing this place now.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
For sure.
But he's a super sharp individual that listened and learned, and he's now teaching other people to learn and listen, and here's how we do this and here's why.
Yeah.
And I always took the time to say why. Whenever we were going to do something, I'd say why.
Yeah.
With the whole thought that next time you won't have to hear me say why. You'll already know. So when I ask you to do something, you'll immediately click and go, okay, yeah, I get it. Sure. That's okay. Got it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they're already doing it. After a while, they're doing it before you even need to ask them to.
Yeah.
And that is super cool. You know,
Sure.
Then you don't have to be out there all the time.
Yeah.
So anyway.
That probably helped you slow down a little bit, like knowing that.
No, it helped me grow.
Yeah.
I didn't slow down.
Yeah.
We just grew.
Yeah.
But I waited. I told Kathleen and the boys, we're not going to go year round, you know, while the boys are at home.
Yeah.
So when they moved away to college was when we started farming in California. And then, you know, that got a little too hot and, you know, for what we were doing. So we're selling that farm presently. So that's why we went up to Oregon.
Okay.
And then New York to fill the needs of our buyers. And we're just listening to what our buyers need.
Sure.
They're telling us what they need. I mean, not just telling. Yeah, I mean, they're telling. No, they're telling us. No, you don't understand. You need to be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, okay, I guess we're going to go do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nice. I dig it, man. This has been great. I appreciate you sharing all of this. Like these are the types of stories that we like to tell. You know, it's incredible what you guys are doing, and you know, it's cool for me on a personal level because I get to see your branding. You know, when I go and I buy herbs for cooking at home, but then also understanding the impact that you guys are having across the country. That's incredible.
So if we're closing out, let me leave everybody with something.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to do organic, even if it's in your backyard. Don't be afraid to try organic.
Okay.
It works. It can work.
What do you mean by that? Like, don't be afraid to like growing it?
Yeah, organic. Yeah, don't be afraid to grow organically.
Okay.
It was something that. Do we have time for this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I came by it accidentally. We accidentally made some incredible compost. It was a relatively small amount. But it was really good quality, quite by accident. And so when we were open to the public at one point in time in the 90s, we had it open to it was cool. Anyway, we had these gardens, these demonstration gardens that would show people how these things are grown, because the rest of the farm was right across the ditch 100 yards away, over 2,000 acres.
Yeah.
But they can't go out there on
Sure.
a regular basis. So, you just can't afford to do that many tours. So we had demonstration gardens to show people what these things look like, that broccoli really does not grow on trees.
Yeah.
Here's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And it was cool for people to see how things were grown. But it was small enough to where we couldn't fit our equipment in from the farm. And it was large enough to where if you asked somebody to fertilize it with, and then this was the first decision that we made, was that, we don't want guys, spreading, that gray pelleted fertilizer by hand out here, regardless. So we're talking about how to fertilize this garden. And I'm looking over at this big pile, and I looked at the former 16-year-old and I just said, hey, what if we just take that pile and we spread it here? Just spread it on this one and the other garden. And they just said, well, how much do you want to do? And I just said, get rid of the pile. Yeah. It didn't smell. We had quite by accident made some wonderful compost. It was straw. We had a petting zoo. The petting zoo's, cleanings were being put there. It would rain. It was in the wrong place as far as the tours were concerned. So Kathleen says, hey, can you move that thing? So we move it out of the way. So after you move the couch about 3 or 4 times, the couch starts to steam and stops smelling like straw and manure. And just kidding about the couch, by the way, everybody. It's a pile of straw with manure in it, or had been. And we, quite by accident, in moving this stuff, turned it.
Yeah.
So about the third time you move this, you're turning it or adding oxygen to the process, and then it rains a little bit more, and it was kind of a wet winter. We made some fantastic compost. It was this dark brown, and it stopped smelling, actually pretty quickly, and it just smells like healthy earth. So we took that stuff and spread it on the field, and it came, it was about 4 inches thick. So if you extrapolate that out, it was probably about 500 tons to the acre equivalent.
Wow.
But we just mulched that in, planted into it. And what we witnessed in the next weeks was unbelievable. It was, there were no weeds that came up. And it was a weedy patch.
Yeah.
No weeds came up. There were no diseases, no insects that were affecting negatively any of the production, and the colors were unbelievable.
Wow.
And I now know that what I experienced was that plants, when they have absolutely everything they need as far as the nutrients and the weather, everything, insects and weeds don't need to thin the herd. They don't need to take the weak plants out. They don't need to adjust the soil by being there.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I know people on the other end of this are just going, no, it's not that simple. I'm just here to tell you, when you see it and experience it, it'll blow you away.
Yeah.
So I just looked at that and I thought, we need to be composting. We need to be doing this.
Yeah.
And so we got into composting in a big way.
Okay. Yeah.
In a really big way. Back then, there was a horse racing facility called Turf Paradise in North Phoenix. We got with them. They started bringing out their raw material, which came out at almost the perfect 30-to-1 carbon to nitrogen ratio. We added water, stirred, and this stuff would get hot and make really nice compost.
Yeah.
We started using the compost on our conventional production.
Yeah.
And then started to see what we could do in controlling diseases that were living in the soils. And you start getting into a really lengthy, nerdy conversation about soil microorganisms and the balance of those microorganisms and what those microorganisms are doing in the soil to create nutrients for the plants, and actually connecting with the roots of the plants to extend the roots, absorb more nutrients more effectively and efficiently, and moisture and things like that. And so, well, you start to really, I mean, remember we were talking about how you're going to learn one way or another if you're out there looking at this stuff.
Yeah.
Man, you stick your hands into the soil and you actually see and witness mycorrhizal activity, fungal. It looks like white fibers in the soil for everybody out there. It's really cool, especially when you know what it's doing. And so we started to see things in our conventional production. And I thought, well, the ground that we've got out here in the West Valley is kind of a gravelly, sandy loam. It's not great stuff.
Okay.
But it likes being farmed organically.
Yeah.
And I used to stick my hands into the soil and I smelled nothing. I didn't smell healthy soil. I maybe even would smell, a little bit of a chemical residue, if you will, from either fertilizer that had recently been applied or a herbicide or something like that.
Yeah.
It just didn't, it doesn't touch the soul, shall we say.
Sure.
It doesn't move the needle.
Yeah.
You go and stick your hands in that soil now, it does. It changes things for you.
Yeah.
You realize you're experiencing something that's healthy and you're part of it. And it's cool. And our production is high. We're yielding more, we're getting better yields organically than we did conventionally.
Wow.
And I was good
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that we're pretty darn good at farming hydroponically.
Okay.
Because that's basically the soil was just holding the roots in the ground.
Yeah.
It wasn't really giving a huge amount back to the plants. We were just putting the right amount of fertilizer, the right amount at the right place at the right time, applying water to carry it into those locations that are the roots are mostly needing it, spraying things, foliarly. I mean, we were good farming conventionally. Good quality, good products. Organic became a different way to do it, and it felt better. It still feels better.
Yeah.
And the learning curve was deep, but it was worth it.
Sure.
And so for those people out there who are thinking about conventional versus organic, do it a little bit at a time, whatever you need to do, just do it.
Yeah.
You're going to learn. You're going to be better. And you're going to like being better, and you're going to like what you're learning, and you can transfer what you're learning readily, immediately. And I think you're going to like your product. You can also be bad at it.
Sure.
I'm not going to lie to you. It's
right?
got two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But for us, it's been a game changer. So I throw it out there to you. Try it.
Yeah. I take it. Arnott, thanks, man.
You bet.
This was great.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like we could do a whole series with you. We could do a whole, yeah.
Well, that'd be a way to bore everybody out there.
No, man. I think, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, and keep up the good work, man.
Thanks. Thanks. We enjoy it. We have a lot of people that enjoy it.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, get back out of there in the field, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going.